Baseball's in major trouble. Revenue's down. Ratings are down. Those national ratings he was talking about.
Yeah.
You have not ingratiated yourself with the younger demographic, with minorities in this country. You haven't done it.
ESPN looks around and says, I've got to spend more money on football. I'm way more focused on football. I don't want to pay $550 million for the bag of rights that I have from MLB.
So picture this. It's October 2025, and we're in the middle of an incredible baseball postseason. The Toronto Blue Jays are facing the Dodgers in the World Series. That's going to start tomorrow as of today's recording. The defending champs are looking to become the first ever MLB team to win back-to-back championships in the 21st century, while the Blue Jays are making their first World Series appearance in 32 years. Shohei Ohtani is going head-to-head with Vladdy Guerrero Jr., who's having an absolutely historic postseason run, slashing a ridiculous 442, 510, 930 with 6 home runs. And on the other side of the diamond, you have Shohei, who just pitched 6 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts, 3 home runs in 1 game. This is the kind of storylines that we would expect coming out of baseball, right? So if baseball is exploding in fan attendance, in viewership online, why isn't the major networks picking it up? Why isn't ESPN showing more coverage? Well, before we get into the video today, as you guys know, we're on the road to 50K subscribers. So if you're not already subscribed with those notifications on, do that now for your chance to win a jersey of your choice. We're giving out a jersey every single video upload. As a matter of fact, I'm going to announce a winner right now. Shout out at Ethan Schreiner 5137. You're the newest winner. Thank you for the support on the channel. Everyone else, looking forward to hearing from you guys and seeing what jerseys you guys want. Now that that's out of the way, let's get right into today's video. So MLB just finished 2025 with 71 million plus fans in attendance. That's the 3rd consecutive year of attendance growth, which hasn't happened since 2005 through 2007. That's over 18 years ago. The Dodgers just set a franchise record with over 4 million fans, the first time any team has topped 4 million since the Yankees and Mets back in 2008. The Padres set their 3rd consecutive franchise attendance record. The Mets and Diamondbacks both had their best attendance record since 2008 as well. And there's more. The average age of ticket price buying dropped from 46 in 2023 to 43 in 2025, meaning that baseball is getting younger fans. The exact demographic everyone said didn't care about baseball anymore. Well, they're showing up in massive numbers. Youth viewership under 18 is up across every single national broadcast partner. Fox is up 13%, FS1 is up 31%, ESPN 19%, TBS 41% up, and MLB Network up a staggering 57%. Guys, this is crazy, and the TV ratings are exploding as well. ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball in 2025 averaged 1.83 million viewers, up 21% from 2024, making it the most watched season of Sunday Night Baseball since 2013. Fox averaged 2 million viewers, up 9%. TBS saw a 29% increase. MLB.TV set yet another record with 19.5 billion minutes watched, a 34% increase over their already record-breaking 2024 season. And on the field, we just witnessed 7 players steal 30 and hit 30 bombers in the same season. That's an all-time single-season record. We also had 4 players hit 50 or more home runs. The game is faster, more exciting, and attracting fans of all ages. Social media engagement hit 17.8 billion views across MLB platforms. That's a 20% increase over 2024. So MLB's brand health score reached 26.9 according to YouGov research, which isn't just 39% higher than it was in 2022. That's, already great. It's the best score of any major sports league, period. Every single metric you can possibly find is pointing in one direction, up. Baseball is booming and it's growing fast. So this should be a moment for celebration for everyone involved in covering America's pastime, right? Well, that's where this story gets crazy, because you can turn on ESPN right now. Go ahead. I'll wait. The NBA regular season, NFL Week 8 matchups, college football rankings, even hockey. Literally anything except the fact that we're in the midst of an MLB postseason and a day away from the World Series. Like, this just makes no sense to me. You have a sport that is showing the most amount of growth across all metrics. You got a World Series matchup that includes a Canadian team for the first time in over 3 decades, which is massive for international growth, and ESPN is over here acting like none of this exists. And trust me, this gets so much worse because not only is ESPN barely covering baseball during its biggest moment, but this is ESPN's final year with baseball. In the memo Rob Manfred sent to MLB team owners, he didn't mince words. Manfred straight up said that MLB has not been pleased with the minimal coverage that MLB has received on ESPN's platforms over the past several years outside of the actual live game coverage. The commissioner of baseball basically called out the worldwide leader of sports for ghosting his league. That's not normal corporate lingo. That's a relationship that's completely been broken. So what is actually happening here? Why does it seem that ESPN wants to kill baseball? Why are they treating America's pastime like it's some obscure sport nobody cares about when all the data, and I mean all of the data, shows the complete opposite? Why are they walking away from a sport that's experiencing its most sustained growth period in nearly 2 decades? So let's start with the obvious symptom of the problem. ESPN's actual baseball coverage during the 2025 season, or should I say their complete or total lack of baseball coverage. Here's a fun exercise. I actually want you guys to do this. Go to ESPN.com right now. Scroll down the homepage. Count how many stories you see about baseball versus how many you see about the NBA, NFL, NHL. I did this yesterday, literally the day before game 1 of the World Series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. And you want to know what the top stories on ESPN were? 3 NBA stories about regular season games from the first week, 2 NFL stories analyzing quarterback performances, and 1 college football story. Baseball, there was 1 article buried at the bottom, and it wasn't even about the actual World Series matchup. It was a generic prediction piece. And this is literally the day before the World Series, like the championship, the culmination of an entire season, of an entire sport. And ESPN is treating it like it's a spring training game that nobody cares about. It's crazy. Now we're gonna try another experiment, and this one honestly is sad but also made me laugh. Open up Google and search ESPN minor league baseball scores, okay? Now, if you click on that first link by ESPN that you see, I wanna ask you guys, tell me why ESPN hasn't updated their minor league baseball score section since 2002. I mean, guys, like, oh my God. I'm sorry, but ESPN, what a joke. But okay, maybe that's just cherry picking. Maybe their TV coverage is better. Well, I wish that was true, but it's not. You can turn on SportsCenter, First Take, Get Up, whatever program that ESPN has on that day, and you'll get maybe 4 minutes of baseball highlights squeezed between 20 minutes of NBA analysis, 15 minutes of NFL breakdowns, and a segment debating whether some college football team deserves to be ranked number 4 or number 5. The disparity is genuinely mind-blowing to me. Like, while baseball is setting all of these viewership and attendance records, ESPN's day-to-day coverage remains virtually non-existent. Fans told baseball to adapt and change with the times. Baseball did just that by instituting changes such as the pitch clock and ABS, and now fans love the sport. But ESPN still wants you to believe that nothing has changed. Meanwhile, they're giving extensive coverage to NBA regular season games in November. ESPN would rather spend 30 minutes debating whether the Sacramento Kings will make the playoffs than talk about the fact that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is having one of the greatest postseason runs in baseball history. I'm sorry, but I don't care what a soon-to-be 37-year-old Russell Westbrook is doing on the senior home team of a roster of the Sacramento Kings. Tell me about how legendary of a postseason George Springer is having. Stop telling me how bad the New York Jets are. Newsflash, ESPN, they've been bad my entire life. They'll probably be bad the rest of my life. You know what's new and interesting? A team from Canada that's making the World Series for the first time in over 3 decades. And oh my God, for the billionth argument of the time, Joel Embiid and his knee, what's gonna happen? Is his health gonna be okay? Is he gonna lead the Sixers to the playoffs? Guys, who cares? We know he has issues with his knee. This is something that we've reported a million times. Why don't we talk about an underdog story of how Davis Schneider made the MLB and might become a World Series champion? Okay, rant over. Back to normal. So here's where we need to talk about the business side of things. because that's really where this whole disaster is about. ESPN is paying MLB roughly $550 million per year for their broadcast package. Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it absolutely is, but here's the kicker. The NFL gets roughly $9 billion annually from its TV contracts. The NBA's new deal starting in 2025-2026 is worth $6.9 billion per year. Baseball, MLB's total from all their partners combined is still under $2 billion annually. So MLB is lagging when it comes to revenue. Now, there is a critical piece of context you need to understand that makes ESPN's decision even more baffling. ESPN's ad sales from MLB games in 2024 were only $58.5 million for the entire season. That's 2.2% of ESPN's total national ad spend. They were paying $550 million in rights fees, but only making back about $58 million in direct ad revenue from those games. So from ESPN's cold, calculated spreadsheet perspective, the math looks really bad. Baseball wasn't pulling its weight compared to the NFL and NBA. Even though the sport has been growing faster than it has in years past, it's not pulling its weight when it comes to revenue compared to the NFL and NBA. But here's what makes this whole situation so insanely frustrating for baseball fans. And this is where the plan to kill baseball narrative really starts to make sense. You see, ESPN didn't just quietly let their relationship with MLB fade away with dignity. No, they actively made the coverage worse year after year, which in turn probably suppressed ratings growth, which then gave them more justification to reduce their investment even further. So for them, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of negligence. Ask anybody who watched Sunday Night Baseball in the last few years. It was like a home broadcast for whichever team had the bigger market. Not only that, the commentators simply did not care about baseball. They'd mistake players' names, disregarded WAR as a stat completely, actively said the current product was worse than the old product, like they hated the sport that they were paid millions to produce. So let's take a step back and think about what ESPN is actually communicating here. They're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for baseball rights, but they can't be bothered to properly staff their broadcast with engaged announcers who know the count. They can't figure out how to showcase the game without splitting the screen to interview managers during at-bats. They can't get their graphics department to display accurate statistics. Maybe this is incompetence, but when you're as big as ESPN, I don't know, it feels a bit deliberate at this point. It's like ESPN is actively trying to make baseball coverage as unwatchable as possible to justify their own decision to walk away from the sport entirely. And here's where the business dynamics get really interesting, because now we know what happened behind closed doors. ESPN approached MLB wanting to renegotiate their deal, pointing to the much cheaper packages that Apple TV Plus and Roku negotiated. Apple pays just $85 million annually for Friday night games. Roku pays only $10 million per season for Sunday morning games. ESPN reportedly wanted to cut their fee by more than half, down to around $200 million per year or less. MLB obviously said no to ESPN, and honestly, good for them, because while ESPN was pointing to, oh, look at these streaming deals you made and look at the cost that they're paying, baseball was literally breaking viewership records across the board in 2025. ESPN's own Sunday Night Baseball ratings were up 21%, posting their best numbers since 2013. Every other national broadcaster saw double-digit increases. The sport is clearly popular. If they can't sell ads on that, then whose fault is that? Is that MLB's fault that they can't sell ads? No, that's ESPN's fault. Maybe if you spent more time promoting baseball on your network, in your network programs, then you could sell more ads for those games. So why would ESPN walk away from a product that's growing, getting younger, and setting records? Well, here's my theory. ESPN looked at their overall portfolio and made a cold calculation. The NFL generates way more revenue per game. The NBA has fewer games and fits better into their programming model. College football drives massive engagement. Baseball, with its 162-game season and Sunday night exclusivity, was taking up valuable real estate that ESPN decided could be better monetized with other content. But the thing that they didn't account for, or maybe just didn't care about, is baseball's growth trajectory is sustainable in ways that other sports just aren't. With the addition of the pitch clock and the rule changes, these have fundamentally improved the product. Games average 2.5 hours now, down from over 3 hours just a few years ago. The sport is attracting younger fans at unprecedented rates. International growth, particularly in Japan and Latin America, is exploding. These aren't temporary bumps. These are structural improvements to the sport itself. And ESPN's own metrics prove this. By June 2025, ESPN was averaging 1.75 million viewers, a 22% increase over 2024, marking their best MLB performance through that point in the season since 2017. 8 years. If your product is showing its best performance in 8 years and growing double digits year over year, why are you walking away from it? And the answer is just because ESPN over long-term investment. Looking at immediate return on investment rather than recognizing they have a stake in a sport that's in the middle of an unprecedented renaissance. This sport is no longer America's pastime, but it's the world's now. Japan just beat USA in the World Baseball Classic. Latin American countries are producing an unfathomable amount of baseball players, and many other countries are also getting the hype on baseball. And you know, the saddest part about all of this is that for ESPN, it was preventable. If ESPN had actually invested in quality baseball coverage, if they had hired announcers who cared about the game, if they promoted storylines during the week, if they gave baseball the same amount of attention and production quality that they give to NFL pregame shows, they probably could have grown the ratings even more. The sport is already growing insanely despite ESPN's neglect. Imagine what could have happened with actual support from ESPN. Instead, they split screened at-bats for manager interviews, they had announcers who didn't know what the count was, they showed incorrect statistics, they treated baseball coverage like an obligation rather than an opportunity. Now let's take a second and look at this from the eyes of an advertiser. So just walk through this thought experiment with me for 1 second. If you were an advertiser and you wanted to advertise on ESPN, why would you advertise during MLB games when you know the network itself doesn't care about them? If I was an advertiser, I'd want to put my ads on games that ESPN has been hyping up all week about. In fact, I'd even bet ESPN charges more for those sports because they can turn around and tell advertisers, hey, look at all the coverage that we're doing to hype up this game. ESPN actively ignores a certain sport, doesn't talk about it at all, and then wonders why they can't sell ads for that sport. And that's despite the fact that viewership is growing. So here's where we are right now. We are about to watch the World Series between the Dodgers and Blue Jays. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is having one of the greatest postseason runs in baseball history. Toronto is in the World Series for the first time in 32 years. The defending champions are trying to win back-to-back titles. International interest is through the roof. Every metric shows the sport is healthy and growing. And ESPN, well, they're barely acknowledging that the sport even exists. So yeah, maybe ESPN didn't have an explicit plan to kill baseball, but they sure made a great impression of it. And now, as baseball thrives and grows without them, ESPN gets to watch from the sidelines as NBC, Netflix, Amazon, and others build better relationships with the sport's next generation of fans. ESPN, on the other hand, just fumbled away one of the best growth stories in sports because they couldn't look past this year's profit margins to see the incredible opportunity that they were holding. That, my friends, might be the most ESPN thing ESPN has ever done. But what do you guys think? Has ESPN fumbled the bag on baseball? Is there a reason that they hate baseball so much that I'm missing? Or maybe I'm being too harsh on them? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next one.